Welcome back to The Connection Cure. Today's episode is really special and close to my heart. There are some people who walk into your life and help you remember who you truly are, even when you've forgotten. In today's episode, I'm joined by somebody who changed the entire direction of my life. The therapist who walked beside me through some of my darkest years. For 3.5 years, he held space for me and the parts of me that didn't feel worthy of living, and slowly and gently helped me rebuild from the inside out. Today, we're going to talk all about healing, trust, and finding your way back to yourself.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. You look fabulous as always.
Oh, thanks. I was like, I'll make a bit more of an effort today.
Bless
It's
you.
being recorded.
I've just turned up as I am. This is me.
Yeah, but that's perfect, just as you are.
Oh, bless you.
It's so nice to have you here.
It's really good to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I've been really excited about it, to be honest.
Me too. And I feel like it's so cool for me because now I'm on the other side of things.
Yeah, I know. It's weird. It's like switcheroo, right?
I'm like, okay, I can find out all about you now.
Yeah, I know. What have I opened myself up to?
I know. Well, no, it's all in the good of other people, helping others feel connected.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I wanted to start it by asking you how you got into this like realm of work and your story behind everything. And you can take us back as far as you wish to go.
Okay, because it's an interesting question. And it's got layers, hasn't it? Of course,
Mm,
it's not always straightforward. So I mean, the seed of it is planted very early
yeah.
in my life. Probably, when I first start to become kind of aware of being a human being. Probably, it's planted then. Really that far, and that's just about environment and background that I grew up in. I suppose, a challenging place to live as a child for all sorts of reasons, and learning from models that I think pretty early in my life I realized weren't going to be the model for me. Kind of a deeper understanding of no, that's not the way I'm going to go. I've got to go another way. I can't be that person or that person. So having those sort of role models who themselves were struggling and having difficult sort of experiences through life meant you've kind of got to figure it out yourself. I think, and that sort of realization came to me early on. Um, And then I kind of realized that I sort of seemed to have this face, particularly when I got into my kind of teenage years. I had this face where people would come along and they would talk, and it would often get quite personal or deep about them. And I didn't even realize that was a thing. That just seemed quite natural for me. And I'd be that person that would spend time with the person, talk. I also felt a natural affinity with caring, I suppose. If someone was in distress or sort of harm's reach, I would kind of go there. I was always that person that would go towards the trouble to
Yeah.
try and help, kind of sort it out a bit, I suppose, for them.
You're like
Um,
pulled into it, aren't you?
yeah, I felt sense of that. And of course, move on now to kind of 17, and I get this compulsion to go into policing, background in policing, which I did in the end. I did within the armed forces context because I was too young really to become you know, a big hat wearing Bobby in the Metropolitan Police or something like that. And
Yeah,
looking back, I'm really pleased I went in the route that I went in. So I end up in the
that's
army
good.
in the Royal Military Police at 17. And again, this thing comes back to me. Like my very first report was, you seem to be the guy that others come to for a bit of help and advice and guidance. And I'm only 18 at this point. And again, that hadn't really occurred to me. You just sort of, okay, um, jump on a little bit more in that career. And I'm now involved in the investigation of things like quite serious crimes, sexually related offences. And I kind of realized, there's this sort of police officer role that's quite, you know, it's quite defined and basic in a certain way. We come in for information. We're asking people who've been, abused, harmed, these really quite sort of personal and pertinent questions. And I realized something was missing in me. I could do more for them. I felt that sense. So I need to do more for these poor souls who are suffering. And that's what it was. It was suffering. I could feel this empathy with their suffering, I think. I
So
didn't know it was called that.
did you feel that on a personal level or in society we could do more?
Oh, definitely. I mean, let's get to that at some point,
I
because
know.
I think we're all connected through suffering, and I'd love to sort of talk about that at some point. But most definitely the going into policing was about trying to help people in suffering. That's what I realize now was fundamentally I wanted to serve. I wanted to do that thing of looking after other people. And into my sort of, teenage brain, that seemed to make sense. Become a Bobby, become a police officer.
It's so funny because I had the exact same. Like growing up, I was like police officer because I was like save the day. And I think I kind of very quickly realized, maybe in my school years, I spent time with people that did get in trouble with the police. And what I realized was they actually weren't getting the help that they needed from the police. Like they needed more nurturing help rather than regimented help. And actually, I wouldn't even call it help, what I was seeing. It was almost pushing the other way and almost going, you know, these behaviors that you're doing, you want that nurturing. That's so the more we penalize you, the more you're actually going to do these behaviors. And I was one of them as well, because obviously I was spending time with these people. You become who you spend time with. And I started doing it and I was like, oh, I get attention when I do this. Okay. And it did lead me down a rabbit hole, but thank goodness I had that. I mean, I think I've probably always been okay at stepping back and being like, actually, is this okay? Like, and I definitely had that same feeling as you. And then I was like, I don't want to go into the police because now I've seen that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it took me longer to wake up. And I didn't know at the time that what I was wanting to do was to empathize and to help people
Yeah.
ease their suffering. But that was happening and occurring naturally. I didn't have the language for it.
Yeah. But we
I had,
talk about this a lot, don't we? About the generations. It's like
yeah,
it's a different generation
yeah.
to me being at school 10 years ago. Well, no, it was a bit longer than that, actually. Well, that's quite sad when you actually think about it.
Won't even get into how long it's been since I've been in school.
No, I know. But it's different generation, isn't it? So it would have taken you longer because you didn't have the opportunities to be more like aware of empathy and nurturing.
No. And those words first sort of became exposed to me when I started then to read books on counseling.
Mm.
I thought, well, counselors use this softer stuff, don't they? They know how to build relationships and rapport and offer support. So that's what I started to do when I was on things like night shift. I'd task out my patrols and I'd be sat with a book on person-centered therapy. Carl
So that's
Rogers.
amazing because a lot of people would do other things that weren't valuable. So it's all choice about how you spend your time.
Completely. And I totally agree. It is all about choice, because my colleagues would be over in the corner playing on their Xbox,
Yeah.
right? Shoot 'em ups and different things. And I'd be reading. And I was always the weirdo, I was always seen as the weirdo. He's the weird guy that reads these weird books. But I fell in love with them. I mean, I fell in love with the writings of Carl Rogers and the humanistic movement and all that sort of stuff. And I just thought, there's something in this. There's something here we should all know. This is really important.
Ding ding.
Yeah, and that's where the lights turn on. And then just by coincidence, on the back of my payslip, there's this advertisement then for what's called the Army Welfare Service, recruiting Army welfare workers to be trained in talking therapy and social work to offer support to the military community soldiers and their families.
Wow.
And I'm hooked, I'm sold. So apply, get the gig, and go off into a 10-month, very intensive residential program, including, you know, some academic work and such. And life changes, really. Life really changes in that regard then, 2003.
Yeah. Do you feel now, I don't know if I've ever spoken to you about this, but do you believe in things coming into your path at a certain time? So that being on that back of that slip, if that had come back past you 2 months before, you probably wouldn't have had the attention on it to act,
Yeah.
but it came
Yeah,
at the exact time.
that kind of, you know, I mean, we use this word manifestation, don't we? And, you know, that idea
Yeah.
that you bring into being something that, you know, is going to give you the opportunity to go in the direction that you're naturally pointed in anyway, you know, your own natural self-direction. Life's so busy and there's so many options, and it can push us out of that lane. We can feel that, you know, work with people around that a lot. People who feel like they're not going in the right direction. But yeah, it was definitely a step through the right door, that one. So it just appeared, it materialized in front of me, and it was so
Yeah.
easy through. That was the thing. It was easy to walk.
Yeah, that is so important for people to understand, because if everything feels like it's being challenged, or like it is actually a physical feeling of being stuck, isn't it? Like you feel a resistance, then you do have to ask yourself, is this right? And it should be like nothing's easy. I think you always come up with challenges, but I think it should be a trusted path.
Absolutely. And it's that, when I say easy, I think that's what I mean. It just felt right. It felt, I
Yeah.
could trust it completely. There was nothing to question or discern or, you know, or figure out too deeply. I could just, yeah, there. I need to go there. And
Yeah.
it was a sense of knowing. And that's what was very sort of easy, was just that internal sense of knowing that was the right place to go. Um, and what was really interesting was right at that time, because I'm the weird guy reading the weird books, some of my colleagues who were policing again used to step forward and say, could I have a chat with you? And we'd have 30 minutes or an hour. And I start to become, you know, kind of pseudo therapist within the policing unit that I'm in. And welfare representative. Then I'm asked to become welfare representative of that unit. You know, and they're obviously telling you about all manner of things in their personal life,
Yeah.
and I just found it, as I still do, you know, just an enormous privilege and immensely satisfying.
Yeah. Do you, the manifestation thing is interesting because I think we are all manifesting our lives. And if we actually look and clock it, because as you're speaking, then I'm like, again, that same path. Remember my colleague that I supported when he was feeling suicidal? And I remember talking to you about it. And um, he was coming to me because he felt that he naturally could. And I felt really privileged for that. But that was almost like, I now believe, looking back, and God bless his soul, um, I remember like so much now being like, this is my path. Like, why is this now coming to me in this moment? But it was because it wasn't right before. But he was basically saying, this is your right path because that's why I felt I could come to you. And he said to me before he passed away, he said, how you're helping an old man is so amazing. You're going to do great things. I don't know if it's here, but you will do great things. And I'm like, I feel like there's always these nudges, but you have to be wanting to see the nudges. And then that's manifestation, is when you can purposely be aware of the nudges.
Yeah. I want to put it out there that we all manifest all the time. And you either manifest the things you don't want, you
Yeah.
manifest suffering, or you manifest the things you do want, and you start to manifest your happiness. And that, to me, is the sort of, you know, that's the spectrum, suffering to happiness,
Yeah.
right? That most people come to things like therapy when they're suffering, and what they're asking the therapist, help me get to happiness, please, will you?
Yeah,
Please help
yeah.
me. And we're helping them rewire that concept of manifestation. Like, what are you doing to manifest the life that you've got now? You
Mm.
know, what's that about? Are you manifesting a little bit of overeating? Are you manifesting a bit of overworking? Are you manifesting some anxiety for yourself? Right? And it's all through habit and practice, and it's often subconscious, and we're not even clear that we're doing it. And what the therapists do, we start to turn the spotlights on. Oh, look what you're doing, sir. Have you noticed what you do there? Did you know you did that? Do you know you talk to yourself this way? And of course, lights start to turn on. And in doing that, therefore, awareness that gets created in that environment helps us to begin to manifest something else. Oh,
Okay, so with that, I'm just putting myself into my old body where I would have been in quite an uncomfortable situation. When I arrived to you, I was very uncomfortable, wasn't I? My trauma was taking over my whole life. I didn't know what I actually couldn't see a future, could I?
no, it's
And
pretty bleak for you, though.
yeah, and when I would come to you, if I was that person now listening to this, how could I trust that I could manifest this to change, but also how could I not stay in that victim of I am encouraging this suffering by manifesting the suffering? And because in that time I saw myself as a victim. And I would say now I was a victim of lots of different traumas, but you embody who you believe you are. So through my growth, I then changed my outlook on that was just a person that experienced that. I don't need to be a victim of it anymore. But how could somebody listening to this in that position change the manifestation of suffering to positive manifestation?
There's probably a couple of points, I think. First of all, let go of the idea of immediacy. Right?
Yeah,
It's taken you a while to get yourself here. It's going to take you a while to get yourself someplace else. It's not going to happen for you overnight. And learning to accept that this is a journey now. I'm beginning a journey. Is a really huge and important moment to have in your life. That kind of, okay, I am where I am. I've managed to get here. Here's where I am. How do I now begin? And that's why it's really useful to have guides and people to walk with you. And do you know what I mean? Just like if you didn't know any footpaths, right? Say I took you out into the mountains here in North Wales, right, where I live. Come on, we're going to go out for a walk. Well, you wouldn't know the path. So you'd have to trust me to just walk alongside you. And along that journey, right, we'd have conversations and we'd point things out. And it's the same. Therapy is just a walk in the mountains. That's all it is, really.
yeah, it's a
And
really nice way of putting it.
it is. So you've got to be prepared, get your hiking boots on, get a big bottle of water, put it in your backpack, and let's go for a stroll for some time. And for some that might be, a few months, for some that might be a couple of years, for
Yeah,
some that might be the rest of their life. And
but
it's
I
accepting
always look
that.
at that as it is the rest of our life.
Yeah.
I say this to a lot of my clients now, but also like friends and family is why do we see healing as this short-term thing? Or like, why can't we view it as living? Because we're constantly going to be experiencing new emotions that we haven't felt before, because we're going to be experiencing new things that we haven't experienced before, and new traumas are going to come up for us. So why don't we see it as a path that is indefinite,
Yeah.
and we just need to view it as we are constantly striving to be the happiest versions of ourselves?
Absolutely. I think the issue with that is our culturalization, right? It's the way we're cultured and educated and brought up, and we're brought up in a world of immediacy. If I want something, it's available. I can pick up my device at any point and access anything, anything I want. I can buy a thing. I can get information about a thing. I can watch a thing. I can be informed on a thing. So we've learned how to be really immediate. And of course, a therapeutic journey is not immediate. It can't be that way. You know, it's not a pill. You don't
Wow,
take it and
that's
experience.
interesting, isn't it?
Do you know what I mean? You don't take therapy and experience some sort of immediate mental change. It takes longer.
Yeah.
And so it's getting beyond immediacy too. I often bring a concept in with my clients. You might recognize it yourself. It's that one of encouraging a client to stroll. Let's slow down. Let's walk here, because when you walk, you see more.
Yeah.
If you're running too fast, you know, the sides of the road are blurring out.
Yeah.
So let's slow down, and we'll see all the blades of grass and flowers and the detail. And in that detail is your healing.
Wow. When we started working together, I remember so many incredible tools that you taught me. And one really helped me through many a time. And it was the dartboard, and like focusing on that center, and like almost now I use it. And do you know what? Over the 5 years, I know that it was so much more detailed. And I know that the way that you said it, I feel like I've done Chinese whispers with myself, because I'm like, now all I visualize is the dartboard, the center, and all of the other aspects of the dartboard is basically noise. And I just want to stay focused on that center. But that is the Chinese whispers that I've led it to be. What actually is the thing that you taught me?
So I think what I taught you was this idea that your mind is what's creating all of that noise, right? That all that outer area of the dartboard. Your mind, it will play tricks on us all the time. It's bombarding us with information internally, and it's so powerful. I mean, let's look at anxiety. You know, anxiety generally is entirely a mental event. You know, as opposed to good old fashioned direct fear, where something outside of us is threatening us, and we're supposed to get scared of it. Anxiety is kind of an internal version of that model, and so we make it happen internally through thinking. But think about thinking. It's a wonderful thing to spend your time with, and just contemplate what your own mind does to you. How often it turns up and puts you down. How often it creates a scenario or an idea of things that will go badly or could go wrong. How often it's telling you, that life's not working out for you. And it's certainly not your best friend all the time. So this is the noise. And to get to the center, to get to that bullseye in the middle of the dartboard is really the concept then of becoming more aware of the sound. Learning to realize that our mind turns up. None of us wake up in the morning and go, right, I deserve a really tough day today. I'm going to get on my own case, and I'm going to put myself down, and I'm going to tell myself I'm a failure. And we don't ask for that, but it happens. That the mind is automatic. It generates automatic thinking. But we believe in it so much. We find it really compelling, and we believe it, and we think it's us.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's me doing this. No, it's not. The mind is doing its own thing, and your you is being shrouded by it, covered up by the noise. We've got to find your you in the middle, the actual you that sits quietly and can observe these things like thoughts and ideas and self-criticism just as a mental event, not real. Thoughts are not facts. They're just thoughts. And that's what helps us clear out the sound, clear out the noise, and find who we actually are. Because also that practice, what's amazing about it, and moving into sort of research now as well, is it's shown to be one of the most effective ways of cultivating self-compassion. We actually start to love and like ourselves more just by being present with our thoughts and understanding that they are thoughts. That's all. We don't have to do affirmations. We don't have to work on this big, long self-script. I mean, we can, and they're useful. I don't decry them. But all we really need to do is become more aware of ourselves as we are, without this huge thinking machine denigrating our life, destroying the quality of our life.
Yeah, I actually really agree with the affirmation take because I sometimes feel like people want to a rigid way of journaling, and actually journaling so powerful. Like it was, I think it's probably, along with your support and like other healers and practitioners and things, it has been the biggest ritual for me of, can you still hear me?
Yeah, you're loud and clear.
I think it's been the biggest ritual because I always wrote down my thought. I didn't force anything. I think the whole point of therapy and becoming more aware is noticing yourself being without force. So if you're forcing yourself to do something to heal, then you're basically practicing the thing that you don't want to do.
Really, really smart observation, because that forcing is also thought led, and thoughts are sneaky. So we kind of get variations on a theme, like you get those big movie thoughts, right? The ones that play out in your mind's eye, moving images, sounds, all these sorts of ideas, like watching a movie in your mind. But then you get the sneaky ones that come over the shoulder, and they're the ones that say, you're not working hard enough, you're not doing well enough, you're failing. And it sort of sneaks into your ear whilst you're watching this other one. But it's still just a thought. Judgment is just a thought.
And like a lot of my work is trauma in your body.
Yes.
I try and get people to drop into their body and use like somatics to release the trauma. And like when you said that, then immediately my body went, like I could feel my chest go a little bit tight, and that's because I've just come out of a survival space and I'm now regulating myself again and coming back into like my safety zone. And so, but everything in my body is still softening and still releasing. And I think that when we feel that, people go very quickly into their head.
Yeah.
And they go, well, what's hurting me? Like, what do I need to change? What do I? And it's like, no, all you need to do is let your body just feel in this moment because it's here for a reason. Like this needs to drop and like land in your body to remind you that you're safe, rather than letting all of that adrenaline, because it is, isn't it?
Exactly right. It's reaction, right?
Yeah.
It's reaction. And you experience it just then. I say a thing and you react, right? So there's
Yeah.
some reaction to that. And yeah, we can all get hooked in reaction and trying to fix reaction, like, oh, I must deal with this now. And the best thing to do with the reaction, honestly, just sit with it long enough. Just sit down, notice your reaction. I'm having some panic, or I'm having a tight chest, or my stomach's gone butterfly, or my jaw's all tight, or my neck is stiff. Just notice it for a time. Sit quietly and notice it. And what generally happens, this is the cloud in the sky type of analogy, It's like watching a cloud drift across the sky. Eventually it blows off all by itself. And you feel that drop away, and we move then from reaction into response, which means that all your brain's starting to turn back on again. And now we can make a better, more informed decision, a quality decision, rather than doing it in reaction, which is where we often fail and make, kind of not the best decisions for us. And
Yeah.
and we perpetuate the motion
Yeah.
because those bad decisions lead to more reactions.
Yeah, and you said something to me recently, which I'm now like gonna hold with me because I think it's really important for people to know and for it to be shared, is no matter like where you are in your life or your journey, or experiences, you have to expect yourself to not always be regulated. Like you are actually allowed to not be regulated. I think we're all striving in, it's becoming it's almost like a trend, which is like good and bad, I think, because good, great, people are bringing a lot more awareness to it. That's incredible. But are people practicing with the right intention? Are people teaching with the right intention? I'm not so sure always. But we are all chasing this state of regulation so much so that we don't allow for the messiness of, actually, it's human. We're animals at the end of the day, just being a bit
all over the place sometimes.
Absolutely. I think, I spoke before, didn't I, about suffering and happiness being on the ends of the spectrum. Maybe a better way of looking at it is don't have it as a line. Link both ends and make a circle. A
Yeah.
suffering and happiness circle that we're all going to move around in all the time throughout our life. There's a wonderful, simple phrase, right? You can get a pin badge with it on, right? It just says, shit happens. And it just does, right? And sometimes it's okay shit, and sometimes it's not okay shit. And that's just the way that life goes for us. We're all going to encounter a bump in the road. So let's get better at learning how to treat that bump with response rather than reaction, so that we know we can, because then we can face it down. We know we can face it down, and that's a really wonderful and empowered place to be, rather than thinking, oh my God, the next bump's going to be the end of me. I can't take anymore, And bless, you've been there, I've been there, feeling that point in your life. And so to be able to stand and think, okay, yeah, I can take some bumps now. Wonderful. Because it means when we're not being bumpy, we can just get on with enjoying life. So really, happiness and suffering, I think, are just the two faces on the same coin. You can't actually have one without the other. One defines the other. What makes happiness happiness? An absence of suffering. What makes suffering suffering? An absence of happiness. So, they're the same ball of wax. And it's just kind of getting used to that idea that life's full of both, and it's adventurous in nature. We'll all take a knot. That path we're walking on in the mountains, it's got a few loose stones. We might twist an ankle.
Yeah. I'll probably get lost because my sense of direction is appalling, but I'll come back on the path eventually.
Don't worry, I'll bring a compass for us.
But that's where we need people.
Exactly.
And so then going into society, that looping back round to the beginning is society now, we've become so alone. We have to face things alone. We're meant to be living alone in our families. We used to live in communities and we used to stay in the same household with your family. Now, I'm not saying that is what we should do now, but I'm saying that we used to have a community of people around us to support us, and massively, for I can see it with my friends that are having babies, is they used to have a village to bring up a child, and now they have to do it on their own and work and do everything else. How can we make sure that we're staying as a community when everything in society is trying to draw us away from that?
Huge question, and you're absolutely right. When you really do start to look at it, and again, when we do research through certainly through the sociology side, psychology side, we know statistically, far more people are not eating a meal together in an evening. People are in different rooms in a home on different devices, and so there's a lot of room for improvement for us. We can bring back some older fashioned rules quite easily. We can say, look, we're going to have a meal at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, whenever you eat, and we're going to sit around a table. I often invite my clients to bring a question like, what went well today? Question. Just ask everyone at the table, what went well today? So we don't just sit and moan. Because it'd be easy, wouldn't it, to all come back from work or school or wherever someone's been and just have a bit of a good old whinge about it. Nothing wrong with that per se, but if we're doing it all the time over and over, we're training ourselves to be a certain way. So, inviting a little bit of friendlier talk, what's kind of good, what's going on, what made you happy today, what made you smile, and those sorts of ways of becoming smaller communities again in our home can potentially lead then to becoming smaller communities again in our community, because you're right, it's becoming really absent. And really, when I talk about walking through those doors towards the center of you, that sort of pathway of who you actually are, really thinking about what you value is so very important. What's important to me? And then, again, in therapy, doing a lot of work with people about trying to get them to bump along with their own values. Just use your values as the basic set of principles by which you live your life, and you won't go wrong. You will experience a lot of happiness by living that way. So,
Yeah.
if connecting with other people's your thing, get out there and do it. Go do your yoga class. Go join, a community group somewhere. Go and be a volunteer in your local park to keep it neat and tidy. Do something. Play Warhammer. I've got clients who do all these things, right?
Yeah.
And
And
it's
it's like just being unique to what you feel is connection for you.
exactly right. Be who you are. Get out there and just do that, and you won't go wrong. As a
Yeah.
general rule, you might only find small groups, but that's okay. Find small groups, and maybe you cultivate things as you go along. So it's important that what we don't do is just sit at home and give up.
Yeah, but and with that, with it being a small group, I think it also comes down to our own expectation, doesn't it? Of if you have everything that you need here, why do you always want this?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Really interesting conversation, right? That idea of wanting. Why does wanting keep coming along into your life? And it's often because you're not having things like your needs met. I'm not really living in accordance with what I need. And again, we should look for values there. They'll tell you what you need. You understand them. They'll tell you the person that you are and how you need to live. But because we don't know about them, we start wanting things.
Yeah, but I could then lead that back into your childhood is this is right in me saying that sometimes you can have everything that you need in this moment, but the trauma that you once experienced as a child, you didn't have your needs met, and almost that holds within you to then prevent you from seeing that you actually have now what you always wished for.
Yeah, absolutely right. And that's where, that sort of good work, and I know you get involved in this too, which is, this sense of inner child work. There's some periods in our life historically that we haven't resolved, we've not found an accord with, we're not okay with. And sometimes it's really valuable to spend some time learning how to safely, when I say that, go back there and be supportive to yourself as you are now. And I've had this experience myself, deeply cathartic, deeply rewarding, deeply emotional. Or I had to go back into a room where a younger version of myself has been really challenged, in a really difficult situation. And to just take his hand and look into his eyes and say, you're okay. I'm here. What do you want to do? Do you want to leave? Do you want to come with me? I've got your back. And even to the point now, that little guy still turns up and has a little meditation. Not
Yeah.
sitting meditating, he just pops along and gets a cuddle, and we sit and breathe.
Well, we have all of our different versions of ourselves within ourselves, don't we? And
Oh yeah,
I was in a client session the other day and her 4-year-old self came up, and I just had this real strong feeling that she was 4 when she felt this emotion. And she was like, "You're right, I was 4." I was like, "Okay, just hug yourself. Just hug like that part of you that didn't actually get hugged then.
yeah,
That was what you needed. So now you can give yourself that." But the safety aspect is so important. And I feel like maybe that's where I was saying, like, it's really great what we're doing in society of having like this projection forwards in this direction of awareness, but also there is an element of making sure that we're going to the right places, because it is so important to do it in a safe manner. Otherwise, being triggered is a thing, and you have to be held in a space where you are seeing your shadows and not being triggered back into the trauma. It's you taught me this a lot, is stepping out and being an observer to see the shadow, to understand the shadow, to then accept it, acknowledge, kind of process, rather than taking yourself back there to just be triggered.
yeah, Yeah, exactly right. And that's when we're alone, when we're not in therapy, that's what's normally trying to happen, particularly with trauma, right? It's, we get these experiences, intrusive experiences. And that's just your mind trying to tell you essentially, look, there's some unresolved stuff here. You probably need to go back and reframe the way you experience this. So, whether that's like, flashback experiences that we might get, or whether those are sort of just disturbing and intrusive thoughts that we don't quite understand, they can come in all sorts of ways. But when we try and do that on our own, we run the risk of becoming re-traumatized.
Yeah.
And that's really what we don't want. So, to be with someone who knows how to help you step back in that way, in a safer way, putting in the sort of safety circuits that we sort of need, safe spaces or whatever that might be for the client that works for them. The power then to be able to actually do that safely, gently, slowly, more, in a more wholesome way, is so cathartic, so healing potentially.
So I am so passionate about this, and I try and talk about it a lot on social media because I think that's my way of connecting with people. And because I also think it's really important to share your experience of this. And I felt this before, for example, I met you, was I went through quite a few therapists, and I felt like you give therapy in a much more holistic approach of incorporating mindfulness and, like I was saying, like dropping into the body, using these practices to really understand that you just need to be now.
Yeah.
We just need to be in our body now. And I think that really helped me, and that's what encouraged me to go into this line of work too. But before that, I faced a very formal side of therapy where they wanted me to talk a lot about the trauma, going over and over and over. And 9 out of 10 clients, I would say, I now talk to have the exact same experience. And I say to them, I don't need you to relive your trauma with me. I just need you to understand the emotion that the trauma gave you. And then we can start releasing that emotion, which then allows you more capacity to welcome in a new emotion that you actually want to hold. And I feel like you did that for me, but when there is this formal way of giving therapy, how do we encourage people or shine light on these other ways of doing it? Because I know on social media I share my viewpoints quite strongly about it, because I have got to a point now where I think it's devastating, like the suicidal rates and how we're trying to offer so much mental health support, but it's actually not leading clients anywhere.
Yeah. I heard a phrase the other day, and it was, the world's much worse than you think, so just get over it, right? And it sounds brutal, right? It sounds awful, but there's something in this that we as individuals, as therapists, first of all, there is only so much reach we can have. We're never going to reach the entire globe, but it goes back to your concept of community. If as therapists we can come together and start to say out loud, there is a bigger picture just than the data-driven types of therapy that exist, particularly in places like our health service, where you get your 6 sessions from someone who's trained in maybe something like CBT. And it's all data-driven, and you get to fill out lots of sheets and forms. There's something broader to be had potentially for you if you want that. And we form the community as therapists that say this. That becomes more powerful, right? This is how NASA puts people on the moon, right? It's a bunch of people all working together with the same aim, and that's where we as therapists who understand that's a requirement, to understand your body, to feel what you feel. It's not just about regurgitating historic, tragic, traumatic events over and over again until something clicks. It doesn't always work for everybody. Some people are very feelings oriented. I have sessions with clients where we even struggle to use words because they're so feelings oriented. So we just do feeling work. We go with the feeling and see if that offers any potential for healing or growth or movement. We just spend that there. It's them. I'm not here to tell them how to be, and this is the issue I think we have with a lot of the more left-brained kind of scientifically based, research-driven psychotherapies. I'm not decrying that. I think that, I would describe myself as a research-based therapist, but I'm also feelings oriented, and I also open the door and allow for factors such as consciousness and spirituality. And who am I to define whether they are or they aren't? It's for me to sit with the client, understand them as they are, accept them as they are, be loyal to who they are.
Yeah. And you inspired me in that, because I always see my work as it's more energy channeling at the beginning. So some people just don't understand how they're feeling. So I'll feel off of them and I'll be able to read and understand their emotion. And then using the emotional therapeutic tools to bring them into the body in the present, and then using the more science-based stuff after that of neuroscience, of like, okay, let's reprogram your brain, let's like change your habits, let's focus on the forward approach, which is where I believe personally science comes into it. That kind of scientific research, when somebody is so far out of their body and their mind that they don't even understand how they feel themselves, how can you then ask somebody to scientifically listen to research, to fill out forms, to do this, to do that? It's like you're over the capacity. They don't have it.
No, they don't. And of course, trauma really, we really get out of our bodies with trauma. Even the brain, when we look at the brain through trauma, we lose our me, myself, and I. This strip right down the middle of the brain where we hold our me, myself, and I. It just goes dark for people who are traumatized, and that means we then struggle to define I feel ... because, well, there's no I. So how do I know how I feels? Right? So we start to really struggle, and we become so totally needy on the outside world to define who we are, because I don't exist anymore in my head. And that is science. We're looking at how the brain literally shuts down when you're looking at neuroscience, where the brain begins to just shut down identity. So we have to help them turn that back on. They've got to get with themselves. They've got to become themselves again. Can't possibly do that without some sort of embodiment work. You live in this body. Let's get back into it. Let's feel it.
Yeah.
Let's allow the feelings in it.
Before you even were able to help me understand the feeling I was having, you actually, first of all, had to guide me in the direction of knowing that I was worthy of having feelings. And I think that's the depth that I would like to share, because I think that for somebody that hasn't struggled with their mental health, or they have, but it's always been at a capacity where they could regulate again, it was more of a flow state of being, they sometimes don't understand the true depths of where somebody could be going. And I was at that point where I didn't know what feeling I was feeling, but I didn't even know I was allowed to have a feeling.
Exactly right. For all sorts of reasons. We're often chastised for having them in our family sometimes, Oh, you always get emotional. What's wrong with you? What do you mean, what's wrong with me? You're not wrong to be emotional. And I hear that a lot from clients. I just get emotional all the time. I can't stop myself crying. I'm like, great. That's brilliant.
Keep crying.
Just let it go, get it out
the
there.
happiness is gonna come
That's
after
fantastic. But we have this, culturalization of not emoting. Going back a few decades, it was probably more okay, wasn't it, for girls to cry? Definitely not okay for boys to cry. And I think what's really good now about Gen Z, bless them, who get a really hard time from all the generations who precede them. I think they're trying to really get their head around that. They're trying to be a lot more open to things like emotion, and they're young, they need some guidance, of course they do, but they're really trying to open up to that sort of side of things, that balanced brain. And again, I just wanted to make a point as well that that neuroscience sort of concept and trauma. What tends to happen to traumatized people is they start to really move left brain. A lot of the processing of the brain becomes left, analytical, data-driven, safety-driven, all these sort of fails, and very wordy, lots of linguistics. And it means this part shuts down. And this is our big picture brain. This is the one that feels and connects. This is the one that just looks at a beautiful view from the mountaintop and goes, goodness, it's beautiful, and feels spiritual about it and connected to it. All right. And this has gone dark. So think of all those experiences those poor souls are not having. Imagine climbing a mountain, not being able to experience that. So, it's incumbent on us as therapists to help that heal. We've got to bring them back into that space. And that comes, again, what do we know? The practice of things like meditation causes the brain to begin to use most of itself. We get this trans-hemispheric activity starting. We start to, become more aware of this side of the brain, and that gives us balance as a human being, So
yeah. And that's the mindfulness side of the therapy. I think it's so important. But I remember before I really understood what healing was, what therapy was, I was one of those people that used food, alcohol, drugs, anything that would fill my void of feeling my true emotion. And I remember when I was traveling, I would get all the way to the top of the volcano, look and be like, okay, let's go down there. Yeah. And it would be like, okay, well, where's the next view then? Rather than actually just being able to sit. And now I could sit all day in the same spot and just notice things. And I think it makes life become more precious. But what are the other things that people could be doing, like that I did, that they might be doing without realizing they're doing? Because I know then I wouldn't have even been able to say that was wrong. I would have just been like, well, yeah, made it to the top. No, now it's time to go down.
Yeah, of course. But think about how you've trained your brain to get there. Right? And that's the thing. That's an outcome of having trained your brain to be a certain way, right? So most of us train our brain if we're going to, if that's the manifestation, is that we get to the top, of the mountain, we don't really see it, we just turn around and go again, ready for the next one. There's a bit of immediacy in there, right? Like, yeah, done it, tick, go, turn around. But there's also that lack of presence, that lack of ability to just say, I'm going to hang out with this for a time. And we train ourselves to miss that every day. Think about how many showers you've had and not even been there because you're thinking about the emails you've got to send, or that bloody drive again, or getting the kids to school, or whatever it is. So you're not here in the shower feeling the water on your body, smelling the shower gel. You're there in the thinking of the mind. And again, as we've said before, thinking is not real anyway. So you're engaging in something that's totally not real, but trains you to be not present. Mm-hmm. So want to start getting present? Turn up for your shower. Turn up for your morning coffee or your tea. Turn up to the bird song outside your window as the days get lighter. Just sit and listen to it. Just let it wash over you a bit more. Stay a bit more connected.
Yeah, but who are the people that need to do that? Like, what will they be currently doing? Like, as simple practices. So I know I listed like quite extreme ones of abusing like alcohol and drugs, and I've actually spoken about it on the podcast previously, where even like porn and sex but they're quite, I would say, in the capacity that I have spoken about and what I'm referring to was quite extreme. What are like simple things that people might not be realizing they're doing?
Good question. First of all, though, I've worked with approaching 3,000 people as a therapist, right? And what you've said is not that extreme in my experience.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's maybe more normal than we might think. All right.
Okay.
All right. Um, but also, what are normal people doing? We're watching TV, we're scrolling through social media. You know, we're using these sorts of tools to not be here, to not be in the room. We're eating, and we're eating in a way that means we're not even attending to our food because we're watching the TV and eating, or we're watching our phone and eating. So, you know, I mean, think
Yeah.
about it, right? You snap off a piece of chocolate and you put that chocolate in your mouth, and it's the most incredible sensation as you go, right? Or a lovely glass of red wine or a gin and tonic, right? That first sip, right? Oh, delightful. But most people, when they're three pieces of chocolate in, or you know, five sips of wine in, have lost it. It's gone
Yeah.
because they're now moving into a conversation, or they're doing something. They're eating a chocolate bar, and again, they're on, you know, they're tapping an email, and so we're not connecting. And this is how we're now training the brain to lose connection, to not be present. We get washed into the stream of it. So the practice, and it does begin with little things like this. You know, break up your chocolate bar, leave it next to you, and have one piece. But stop typing the email. Sit back, you know, take it all in.
What does it taste like?
Oh, you know, roll it around the mouth and just let it coat the mouth. Notice how your mouth waters. Notice the flavor of it. Notice where on the tongue it lights up. You know, smell it before you eat it. What does it remind you of? Christmas, Easter, you know? Oh, chocolate, you know? And just when you finish that piece, just notice, just for 10 seconds, just notice how the legacy of it's still there. It's not
Yeah.
gone. And then you can write your email. Don't eat that chocolate bar anymore, though. Wait till
Yeah.
you've written the email, and then have your second piece, just like the first one, all over again.
And when we don't do that and notice those simple pleasures,
Yeah.
that's when we lead to what I explained as more extreme desires. Because if I wasn't finding pleasure from eating the chocolate, then I was probably not noticing the pleasure in everything else around me. And then I was seeking pleasure in the bedroom because that was quite an intense experience of pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you reach that point in a bedroom, you can't avoid the fact that it's pleasurable, right?
Yeah. And sometimes it's not,
Provided
but
it
our
stays that way.
brain tells us
Yeah.
that it is pleasurable because we haven't noticed the pleasure in the small
Yeah.
things.
And so you're now in that world of dopamine chasing, aren't you?
Yeah.
I'm chasing the next big hit, the next big hit. And that underpins all addiction. And I want to broaden that term. You know, addiction doesn't mean heroin or crack or alcohol. It's way broader, you know, way broader. We can be addicted to anything that is about dopamine chasing,
Yeah.
you know. So again, to begin to slow down the process and really be with, if you are, you know, having something enjoyable, pleasurable. I mean, and even in the bedroom, slow down,
Yeah.
time, enjoy it, you know, be with it, connect with it. And you'll probably find you don't need it as often when you
Yes.
do that as well. Like I don't need to go again immediately, you know. Just like the top of your volcano. Sit down and enjoy it.
Yeah.
I got here, I'm having this experience, I'm gonna bloody enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you also then in life, I found anyway, and I see it in a lot of the work is you don't need the extremes as often
No.
because we all love those extremes of like going skydiving or getting drunk. Well, for me now, getting drunk is an extreme because it happens so rarely. But so when it does happen, it will be like a wedding and it's like really joyful, like the energy is just quite big. And I will usually need to take care of myself the next few days because my whole body's going, holy crap, what just happened?
Really good observation. Yeah.
Yeah, and so those highs happen a lot less frequently, but
Yeah.
and then I can regulate myself better. But
I used to drink 3 bottles of wine 4 days a week, and that level of high no longer became a high. And so then I was chasing, like you were saying, you're chasing the next high. And I think there was an aspect of it, for example, before I came to you, where I almost reached a point where I was like, well, nothing is making me feel good now. Like nothing, like unless I'm going to go to a more extreme action, which would then lead to probably criminal activity, detrimental impact on my health. Unless I'm going to take myself to those places, nothing is going to make me happy now. And so it was like, I need to do something about this.
I think you also point at something there, which is just, you know, the flaw we have in the concept of happiness, that we think it's at the end of something. You know, like you say, we've got to go for a night out and drink some drinks, then I'll be happy. Or, you know, I've got to go and succeed in some way, you know, get a qualification, I'll be happier if I get it. It's always after something or on the end of something. And it's not true. That's not how happiness works, really. Happiness is kind of ever present. It's around you right now in the room that you're in. And it's whether you choose to take the time to notice it. It's in seeing someone you love smile. You know, it's in feeling that water on your body in the shower. It's in just those little momentary connections, the sun on your face, you know, the blueness of the sky, you know, seeing a flower in the rain. It's in those things.
It is.
It's now, it's present. And so again, developing your ability to be aware and to be present means that our happiness levels begin to rise. And this goes back to statistics and the study of happiness again. Some of the happiest people in the world are people like Buddhist monks who, you know, what do they do? A lot of their day is about meditation, being present. And they just are there. They're just there all the time.
Just being.
In the present moment, you know, and training themselves to be that way. We live in a society that makes that really difficult to do. It's trying to make you think ahead all the time. Be ready for Christmas, you know. Start buying now. You know, think about this now. Start paying your pension off. You're at 17. Start paying your pension. And so we're always off in the future, which is a very anxious disposition, right? I mean, anxiety is very future.
The desire for more again, isn't it?
Jason, when did you have an advert on the telly that says, don't buy anything, have a week off?
Yeah, no, I know. And so many people say that when they start just being, they save money. And I am an advocate for that because I used to spend, and that's why then I had to stay in corporate jobs that I didn't enjoy, was to keep up with the spending, but actually change your habit to being, you don't spend as much, then you don't have to be in that job that you don't like as much. And it's like and then your family's happier, your relationships thrive. It's a whole loop, isn't it?
It just has all these knock-on effects. And you keep bumping into them along that journey. You know, as someone now who's been practicing this stuff, well, when did I sort of really first get into personal practice? It was about 2013. I had a pretty difficult point in my life at that point. And started to find mindfulness and do formal training and practice. So I'm down the road a bit with it now, but still bumping into new experiences. I think, oh my goodness, you know, I wouldn't have had that without this. So it's, yeah, again, we can make it quite formulaic and say, well, there's a structured course and you go and do this, but it's experiential. I mean, mindfulness is experiential learning and growth.
Yeah, and I do.
We can read, we can write, we can do the study, you can go and do a master's degree in it, but it's experiential as a practice.
Yeah, and you can get wise souls at a young age where they actually haven't done all the study and they haven't written all the books and everything, but they had to experience so much at a young age that they actually have the experience of somebody much older. And I like to always stand by the fact that time and age is just a massive illusion.
we can be carrying spirits from different generations and different lifetimes. And actually, what you've experienced in your timeline, if you're 10, could be sometimes more than somebody that's 50. It just depends on what you've been exposed to.
Yeah. Hey, I've got to talk about an experience. So as a therapist, I also go to therapy, okay? And I like to move around in the arena, so I experience different therapists, different styles. I think that's a really useful way of approaching
Yeah.
it. And my last experience was with a spiritual therapist who used, various different sort of tools. And one was, tarot reading, tarot cards. And one of the cards that kept appearing was the King card, which was really, really interesting for me for a number of levels, because she said that the king represents the person who must care for the people, right? The one that must take care and honor the people. You know what? The day after I stopped therapy, my mother has done a huge genealogy of the family going way back, right back. And she only finds out that I'm related to King James the First, right? I'm a
No
descendant
way.
of King James the First, King James the Sixth of Scotland, as he was James the First of England, through our Scottish ancestry.
Wow.
And you just sort of think, hey, again, be open to it all. Why not? Why let the thinking machine create some belief system that gets in the way of what might be life and
Yeah.
its wonderful experiences? So
There are so many different ways of healing out there, and we are all our unique people, as we've definitely discovered in this chat. And I think that people should discover their right way of healing for them. Like, there isn't a right way. As long as it works for them, that is all that matters. It literally doesn't matter if it's different to Bob down the road or me or you. And I I actually do tarot reading as well for people. And I did it for myself about a month ago. And the cycle and theme I was in was rebirth.
yeah.
The foundation that was holding me through this cycle was perception. And my emerging energy was acceptance. Now, when I do my cards or cards for other people, I'll like channel into messaging of what I'm receiving from that card. And sometimes when I'm doing it, I couldn't tell you what I said because it's just coming out. And I was writing everything that was coming out for me. And I then put it away. I then don't look at it and I just live. And then when I feel like my emerging energy is coming through, I look at my notes. And this is just like how I do it for me. How I read for others and what clients do is their choice. And I looked at it last night and I was like, oh my gosh, everything that I wrote down in the last month has happened.
Yeah.
Like, I just so believe now that we're like bodies carrying ourselves through a life that was already set out for us.
No, I can understand it. I think for me, I'm still trying to figure that out. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I'm open, because there's definitely a sense of destiny in what I do as a therapist. This fits with me completely. I'm energized by it. It doesn't feel like work. I've never had that sitting on the end of the bed Monday morning, oh, I don't want to do this feel. It just doesn't come along.
I get like Sunday excitement now. I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I got on for Monday?
I do that. I look forward to who have I got. Oh, it's them. Oh, it's them. Oh,
Yeah.
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 And the work is just so meaningful, wonderful. A privilege to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't imagine. I don't see me ever doing anything else now. And that point of being able to make a leap into private practice for me was just so fulfilling.
Yeah.
And just felt immediately like the right thing to do.
Yeah, because you can then stay truly aligned to you and not following
Exactly.
the suit of what you have to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've worked with the NHS. Obviously, I worked back in the Army Welfare Service, and they have their own structure and confines to the delivery of their service.
Yeah, we couldn't be doing our tarot cards there.
No, they'd be slapping your wrists. Your supervisor would be all over you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you know, they're quite insistent on the models of therapy that are used, you know, and the approaches. So it is nice as an integrative therapist. I want to embrace that term. Like, what is it I want to integrate? Well, I want to learn about this whole arena of psychotherapy
Yeah. I
and
wish it was
understand
like
it.
in all of those spectrums, I wish it was just more embodied everything. Like that's what I try and do with my work. I try and bring in the science and the neuroscience. I try and bring in the spirituality, the more kind of adverse ways of healing, the somatics. But I know in truth what has truly worked for me. And that's been a huge combination of everything, like from all of those forms of healing. And now I just think when I'm helping clients, I don't have to stick to one way because there isn't one way.
No, there isn't, because there isn't one client.
Yeah.
And if we accept that the most important thing in therapy is the relationship, and for me it is, you know, it's like you can't have therapy without a really good relationship between
Yeah.
client and therapist. So if that's the most important thing, how can I then turn to the client and say, right, now you must go through this method.
Mm-hmm.
We must push you through this sausage machine. Well, what if that doesn't fit them? And it's incumbent on me as a therapist to keep growing too,
Yeah.
so that I can meet them at their door and
Mm-hmm.
and walk into their room and understand it with them and be okay with that, you know?
Yeah, and do you know one of the questions that I got asked? So I put up a question box on my social media for people to ask questions that they wish they could ask a therapist without going to therapy. I did get quite a few questions and I'll answer them because we don't have time to answer them all. So I'll make sure that I do get back to those people. But one of the ones was, if I can't find a relationship in a partner, how can I find a therapist?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I hear you. Again, it comes back to what we've said. You've got to sit in the room and feel it. And when I say sit in the room, I don't mean face to face. You can sit in the room on your laptop, right, or whatever. But you've got to feel it, and and it's also on us as therapists to allow for that. I know a lot of therapists who get very precious straight away, and you know their time's very expensive and those sorts of things. And we have to be cautious around that. We've got to let clients gently, you know, kind of touch it, reach out, and know they can trust it. Know that you're going to hold the space for them. Know that they're going to be understood. Know that they're not going to be judged. You know, all those sorts of things. But also know that you're willing to go. I always use an analogy, and I say, your life is your woodland, and we're going to go and walk around your woodland, and you decide the trees we go to. However, on the way, I might say, what happened to that tree? Why has it been chopped up and it's on fire?
Yeah.
Because that's my job, that when you avoid it and walk past and go, no, no, let's look at the tree over here. Don't ignore the one that's on fire. I have to go, I'm just going to stop us here and I'm going to ask about this.
Yeah.
And that's the analogy I always use, is it's your therapy. You choose where we go. I will come with you.
Yeah. But that's then you adapting yourself to the client and not asking the client to fall into a structure that you believe in. And I think maybe as a starting point for these people that are questioning this is go and explore, and don't feel like you have to say yes straight away. Go and explore, have a chat, take some notes if you feel like that's what you need, then come away from it and sit with yourself and go, did that person make me feel warm? Did that person allow for me to open up? Did that person make me feel any judgment? And then when you ask yourself these questions, you can very naturally then start to trust yourself. And then that's you allowing yourself to trust in just being.
Yeah, exactly right. and be prepared to have a session or two and leave it.
Yeah.
Make that clear to the therapist at the start. Like, I'm not certain. Try different therapists. Do what feels right with you. You know, the therapist just have broad enough shoulders to take that.
Yeah.
You
And that
know,
you sometimes have to try a load, and like that's
yeah,
okay. Like I think I went
fine.
through at least 10 before I got to you, and in our path together of like 3.5 years, I've also gone to different like healers and mentors around that while staying consistent with you. And I think that that's really important for people to know is just because you're going to one person, don't ever allow them to make you feel like you can't explore other avenues too. You are absolutely allowed to have a variety in your life.
Some of us want to walk on quite a defined pathway, right? And we get on it fairly easily, and we just go. And some of us aren't like that. We're walking on the path and we think, oh look, there's another path there.
Yeah.
And we want to scramble up there. And, you know, and again, we've got to be allowed to be who we are. And to answer that question, if I can't, you know, build a relationship, you know, a personal one, how can I build a relationship? It's just be adventurous, be free. And maybe you're not allowing that in your relationships yet. And that therapy can help you learn how to do it.
I was going to say that maybe the focus needs to be not on everything. Like you were saying, it's like always wanting to get to the end goal. Well, what is the end goal? Like, there isn't an end goal. We're just living. So, face one thing at a time. It's just that next step. So, maybe actually the therapy is what you need to come back to who you truly are, to then allow you to find that person for you.
Yeah. Because fundamentally, what it is a space where you can do that.
Yeah.
A space where you can find yourself, you can find out who you are, and you can let that be, warts and all, shadow and light, the whole of yourself. You can stand in therapy and be. And that for anyone is a really cathartic thing to know that you can. And it's the therapist's job, fundamentally, to hold that space.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's a privilege.
Yeah, the biggest. I think the greatest privilege.
It's the greatest privilege. Like somebody asked me yesterday, do you not find your job hard? And I'm like, no, I don't find it hard, because when my client is finding something hard, I just have to be with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is not a hard thing to do. I find it rewarding. I find it's like a gift.
But it harks at, doesn't it? That comment, isn't it hard? Harks at our inability to communicate with one another generally in society. You know, we encounter this phenomenon, don't we? And I call it the crossing the street phenomenon. And that's where when we come across someone who's in difficulty, we cross the street, we avoid.
Yeah.
You know, oh, here comes that person who's got the cancer diagnosis. I don't know what to say to them. I'll just duck in the shop here out the way. And we've all had experiences of doing something.
Yeah.
And it's because we struggle to just be alongside someone who's suffering in pain.
Yeah. But I think
in therapy, we can learn how.
Yeah, and I think if you're in your suffering, that's really difficult to then sit with somebody in their suffering, because you're mirroring and you're bringing up everything within each other. And that's where I believe more in the spiritual alignment is we're all an energetic field. And if you are energetically holding this energy that doesn't feel nice, you don't want to pass that on to another, but also you're going to be like, I can't hold it for another. So I think with our work, it's really important for us to make sure that we are priority. So then our cup is like filled, and then we can actually constantly be that observer to be like, okay, well, in this time I'm my practice, and in this time I'm their practice.
Absolutely. The oxygen mask analogy works beautifully for therapists, doesn't it? We must have our own on before we start helping others. So that taps into concepts of embodiment as well. You know? A therapist must embody this, you know, the very principles, the attitudes, the models that they espouse and offer. You know? Why do I use a lot of mindfulness in my work? Because I practice it.
Yeah, you have to be who you
It's
say you
me.
are.
It's
Yeah.
who I am, and so I can work with it from that place, which I think is a much richer experience for the client. So,
Yeah.
embodiments, and that's something else I'd say to clients looking for therapists. Do they come across as just connected in that way? Do they look like they're owning what it is that they're selling? And that's a really important thing to consider. Do they see?
Yeah.
We use the word congruent in therapy. That's one of the core conditions there, congruence, genuineness. And I say that to my clients all the time. The version of me you get through this screen or in this room is the same version that my wife gets, the same version my kids get. It's just me,
Yeah.
not trying to hide anything from you. I'm not
And
trying to
I can
be,
vouch for that.
yeah,
You are exactly as you are now in this conversation. And you can tell that that would be who you are. I think it doesn't matter the suffering that you're in and the trauma that you're holding within your body still will be sending you the signals. It's, do you want to listen to that signal of okay, in this conversation I feel so calm, I feel very connected, I feel very warm, so I'm safe, I'm okay, I could share anything, even if what I was to share was wrong. Nothing is wrong.
exactly right. Exactly right. And I've worked with people who, particularly back in the military, who've had to do some terrible things,
Yeah.
and it cuts them up, and, for them to sort of talk about it and share it. And you're right, to give them again that space, to hold a space where nothing is wrong. You can't tell me anything that's going to make me not like you,
Yeah. And
because
it
I
is
give you
accepted.
total positive regard all the time. That's what I will do as therapist.
Yeah.
That's my commitment to you. That's my promise to you.
Don't you feel like that is a huge credit to who you are, though? It doesn't matter what somebody has experienced, it doesn't matter what they have had to endure in their life. You see them as a being. And I do that. I would hope that everybody feels that from me too, is you and me are just beings.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. We're never human doings, right? although we get on doing a lot. So we're not what we do, whether good or bad. That's not who we are. We're human beings. And when we're behind closed doors and behind shut curtains, then we might do things that we don't want the world to see, but we're still being. And it's that being that you work with. You work with that being. And therefore, in the context of being, you can allow any doing.
Yeah.
And I just think that's, all we do as therapists is help our clients understand whether what they're doing is right for them or wrong for them.
Yeah.
Does it cause you suffering or happiness? Does it cause other people suffering or happiness? And we help to align both those things ideally. If it makes you happy and other people happy, you're cooking on gas. You're doing okay, aren't you? So we have to have that space. Yeah, we've got procedures and we've got ethics and those sorts of things that mean, there are certain things you have to disclose. Of course we do. And that's quite right. But fundamentally, again, ideally, I'd rather disclose something for a client to help that client, not hinder them, not pull them
Yeah.
down.
Well, and there's a reason behind every action.
Exactly, and I've had to do that in the past. I've had to inform organizations like police, social
Yeah.
services, but I've always maintained and been there for that client too.
Yeah.
I'm having to do this, but I'm still with you. I'm still your therapist. I'm going to come through this with you.
Yeah.
You know,
That's actually what made me want to go into more policing. And now even I can't even say that in the future it might not happen, because I think that we can never say never and we don't know what's going to come on our path. But I've always been intrigued about law, and I do see it in my future doing more legal work, because I find it so important for even people that go against the justice system to know that actually, as a society, we have to help these people understand their reason behind their action to help them move forwards in their life rather than just penalizing them for something that they did off of the back of sometimes their actions aren't even their own choice.
Oh. And prisons are full of the mentally ill,
Yeah. And we
not just full of
literally,
criminals, you know?
yeah,
Yeah,
we see it more as a punishment rather than a healing.
yeah,
Whereas there's countries that have a very opposite take, and actually, even more so, like even the UK and America, not far off, they actually did that. They had more justice for people that were mentally unwell. Not saying that the remedies were always correct, but they did notice it and put it more in place of, no, okay, this action comes from a health standpoint rather than a crime aspect, because it is all crime, but it's all health.
yeah. But it's what triggers the crime, isn't it? It's that
Yeah.
understanding of those social aspects, those mental health aspects, that means crime is an outcome.
Yeah.
If we look at crime as an outcome and not an activity, it starts to change the way that we look at it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, and that's the part. It's on us, I think, in our industry, to really think of it as an outcome. You know, so therefore, what preceded it? What triggered it? What enabled that? And again, can we work with that? Can we to help you change so you don't need
Yeah.
criminality as a tool to live?
But people that are struggling with connection and their mental health are not going to be able to see that way because they are so in the trauma and so attached to the trauma. They need to become detached to be able to sit back and actually have the understanding of nobody is a bad person. They have experienced bad things that lead them to bad choices.
Exactly right. You know, you take something like psychopathy. You know, we know there's lots and lots of people in the world who are psychopaths, and some of them do wonderful jobs, like surgeons, right? There'll be a number of surgeons statistically that are psychopaths, and they'll do their jobs really, really well, and they'll create no problems at all for society. But take a psychopath and traumatize them, and now we've got a different outcome. You know, so take that psychopath and make them mentally ill as well as have psychopathy, and now we've got the potential for something alarming and concerning. You know, and then we start to use terms, don't we, for people who have that recipe. We start to call them things like monsters and evil. Like we dehumanize them, in other words. They become, demons. And it's just so utterly wrong. No, they're beings who have a certain recipe of mind, a certain recipe that means there's an outcome. If we can understand the recipe, we can work with that.
Yeah.
And we can help support and enable as we should do. So I think, socially, we've still got a way to go with things like the criminal justice system, and having worked within it in policing, I couldn't do that again at this point in my life.
Yeah.
It's not something I could go back towards. Where I sit now feels more fulfilling and full.
And that is amazing that you found that path,
Yeah,
because there's people that have their path within society and
yeah,
within policing and within
yeah.
the roles that we also need them to be in. But there is definitely a place for everybody, and you support that system.
Yeah. We're part of it, right? We're all
Yeah,
really
we are
one big.
all part of it.
We're all one big community, really. Even if we think we're not, and even if we feel a bit disconnected,
Yeah.
we can plug in again. That is
Yeah, we have
possible.
to see the good in everything, because if we want to see the bad in everything, we absolutely will see it. But if we want to see the good, then we can absolutely also do that.
Yeah, it just takes practice because we're naturally designed to see the bad, right? By
Yeah.
about 3 to 1.
Yeah.
Seeing the bad's 3 times more powerful than seeing the good, that negative bias. It's stickier and heavier. So
Yeah.
it means the analogy I always use is your seesaw's got a breeze block nailed onto one side. So it's always going to be down. So if you want balance, you must push on this side and maintain. And that's lifelong.
Yeah.
You have to move towards those more positive aspects of life and living. I don't mean in a toxic way. I mean in a full, rich, and genuine way. But you have to do it forever. And I've realized that with myself. You know, my practice is forever.
Yeah.
Because otherwise my seesaw will go.
Yeah, but it's interesting that you said toxic there, because there is a huge thing at the moment around toxic positivity, and it is definitely a thing. A lot of people experience it. No offense to your generation, but to your generation, is I think it's probably seen more. I think, like you were saying, that Gen Zs are trying their best to embrace those lows as well as highs, to embrace everything in life. And I think that comes with its own problem, because you're trying to embrace so much that you literally can't actually hold everything, and then you become in a little bit of a spiral, or you become very suppressed by having to take everything on. But the reverse is that toxic positivity of everything's fine, everything's good, we just got to keep going, just keep going, just keep going, like everything's going to be okay. And it's like, no, it's okay. Things can be just shit. And that's like what I said at the beginning, right? Allow for the messiness.
Exactly right. You know, and that we've had this conversation before. I think Alex said, you know, fine stands for something, doesn't it? Effed up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. I'm fine, right? You know.
I love that.
Yeah, and it is right. You know, it's that standard response, isn't it? As you're passing the car park at work, you know, how are you? I'm fine. It doesn't mean anything. It's totally meaningless. You say it when you're not fine. You say it when you are fine. It's meaningless. So we fundamentally, as a society, wouldn't it be great if we could all get into slightly deeper conversations about actually how we're feeling and be all right with it?
Yeah.
You know, and be okay with the sloppy, messy, disturbing, difficult, suffering stuff, because it's coming your way.
Yeah, we basically just need to remove fine and okay from the dictionary, and then people would have to use actual words to describe
Yeah,
how they were
not bad is
feeling.
another pet hate of mine. Oh, I'm not bad. What does that mean?
That's basically asking yourself to be a cup empty, half empty. Like,
Well, I'm not bad. Okay. Elaboration?
yeah, because the reverse of that is I'm not good. And it's like, okay, so why aren't you good then? And you would start
Exactly.
asking questions, but saying, oh, I'm not bad. It's like nobody asks questions when somebody says I'm not bad.
I have to be. I'm guilty of the I can't grumble. I'll often say I can't grumble.
Do you?
Yeah,
Is
and I need
that
to catch myself.
I've never heard that in my life. Is that a Welsh thing?
Don't know, but maybe it's a northern thing. Can't grumble.
Yeah.
Maybe it is, but yeah, I think just to be able to say, you know what, I'm great. Yeah, I'm really good. I'm in a
Yeah.
great place just now. Thanks for asking. How are you?
I just like to use actual describing words like, oh yeah, I'm really happy at the moment.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, do you know what? Things have challenged me, but I'm doing well now.
yeah. Good for you, right?
You
That's a
have
lovely statement.
the conscious effort though. You have, and I think that if your diary is so cram packed with seeing people, is you don't have then the capacity to have that conscious effort. So that's when you start going, oh, I'm good, because it's like, well, you're sick of saying to people, do you know what, things have been a bit tough, but I'm actually really good now. So you just go, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good.
And there's that weighted seesaw again, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you have to keep, you know, and it's in little things like our language and our responses, and you know, it's all in these things. You just have to keep reminding yourself, oh yeah, I need to I'll just polish up that part again,
Yeah.
because you know it only takes a bit of feeling, you know, overworked. Or, oh, I'll just let go of it accidentally.
Yeah.
Over it
And with
goes.
that balance, not being critical of yourself, but just constantly keeping yourself at critique, to be agile and to adapt and notice, actually don't allow yourself to go too far into your ego, bringing yourself back into that middle ground to critique yourself and go, I'm ever evolving, I'm ever learning, like I can always do better.
Yeah, we're always in momentum, right?
Yeah.
Point at anything that's not in momentum. You can't. You know,
Yeah.
even the sun in the sky, right, wasn't there once and won't be there one day. Everything that has the nature to arise has the nature to pass away. So we're all in momentum.
Yeah.
So don't hold on to anything so much. Let go and understand that you're already evolving. You already have evolved. So that's a really useful mindset for anyone in therapy or anyone as a therapist. I'm always evolving through experience.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for this conversation.
You're
I
welcome.
mean,
I've really enjoyed it.
I've loved it, and I know we could talk for hours and hours and hours and hours.
Quite easily.
But we might have to just leave that here for today, and we may have to restart a new conversation another day, because I know that it will be really helpful for people. And actually, looking at the questions that I had, well, I think we've answered quite a lot of them in here. So I know that it will be super, super helpful for people.
By all means, feel free to email them over if you want an answer. I could email back with some answers as well. That would be useful.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm going to look over them and make sure that they were all answered in full. But yeah, thank you so much.
You're all welcome, young lady.
You're wonderful. You're wonderful.
All right. No
And
problem
I'll
at all.
speak to you soon.
You take care. Catch up
You
soon.
too. Bye.
Bye. Bye.